Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Cinema Wave Podcast here at the Culture Wave Media Network, and we are here to discuss the newest film, F1, the movie. Now has a subtitle starring Brad Pitt. I am going to be one of your hosts for this episode. My name is Darian Scalamoni. I am joined by Vinny Albano.
Hello, hello.
Vinny, we haven't recorded in a minute. It's nice to see you.
Yeah.
Glad to be back on the pod.
Yeah, we've been, I feel like we've been missing each other.
We have been.
I've been here, but not with you.
And I was doing a lot of Tribeca stuff, but we get back to the theaters for a legitimate theatrical experience. This movie, we both saw it in IMAX. We didn't see it together.
Yeah.
But we both saw it in IMAX. And it's a hefty movie, right? It's a very long movie. It's about 2 hours and 35 minutes is the runtime. But this movie was announced years ago in this big partnership with Apple to do this Formula One movie. And I know that Lewis Hamilton, who's like the number one Formula One driver in the world, is a producer. He's in the movie. And Joseph Kosinski is the director on this, who did Top Gun Maverick. And I believe Jerry Bruckheimer also produced this, who also did the Top Gun movies. And so there was a lot of hype behind this movie because people were like, it's literally Top Gun with race cars.
Yeah.
Is how it was kind of being billed. And instead of Tom Cruise, who's one of the biggest movie stars, obviously, on the planet, you just get another huge movie star in Brad Pitt to be like the lead and the driving force behind this movie. So I guess my first question, for two questions, I guess. One, your broad thoughts kind of on the movie, non-spoilery type stuff, but also like your frame of reference of like Formula One. Like, did you come in with any reference of like what the material is other than just like, I'm going to go in and this is going to be a racing movie with Brad Pitt?
Yeah. With F1, I'm familiar with the sport and some of the races, but I'm really not like an F1 nerd by any chance. I like don't know any names or anything of specifics, but I know F1. When I see an F1 car, I know that's an F1 car.
Gotcha.
And I like racing. I've always liked racing games and just watching it. And although not F1, like NASCAR is always super fun to watch. And my broad thoughts on the film, and I'll keep it to just very broad, is that it's pretty good. It's pretty good. It hits all the check boxes that you want to see in a cutting edge blockbuster. And I think that's what John Kosinski does best here, as it feels with Maverick. It, like you said, Top Gun Maverick, but with cars, very much feels exactly like that. I mean, to the editing, even to the characters and the story beats, very similar. And I think it's a double-edged sword because at times it can feel formulaic, but at the same time, I love how well done the formula is because I still had so much fun with it.
Yeah, I think the last thing you just said is exactly like, for me, this movie was a fun time at the movies. Yeah. Like, you're not going to go into this movie and not be entertained by what it is. It's kind of chest pumping. It's seeing this movie in IMAX. I was just saying before we started rolling off camera, it's one of those movies that calls for you have to see it in IMAX because of the way that you can feel the rumble of the cars, the way that you can feel the velocity on the track, the way that the music kind of pumps through. And you have these larger than life figures on the screen. Obviously, like Brad Pitt is one of them. Javier Bardem is such a presence every time he's on screen. I thought Damson Idris, like, I haven't seen a lot of him previously. I watched a few episodes of Snowfall. I know it's a very, like, that was his big kind of calling card. And I think he's a terrific actor. In this movie, he shows a lot of charisma. So it deals with the characters as well, that where Maverick has like these unforgettable characters in a way where it doesn't necessarily call to like, oh, they did something, like the character made a decision that made me think about them for the end of time. It's just that these characters stick in your head and you're like, oh, like they have now become a character and like an iconic figure within their own franchise. And for me, that was sort of what I was hoping for with this movie, and it executes, like you said, it checks all the boxes. It does all of those things in this movie. But like you said, double-edged sword, because you get to a point where it's like, yeah, there are scenes where it's like there have been 25 cuts in 30 seconds. And it's like, how do you keep up with that breakneck pace, it works better in the racing scenes, obviously, than when you have like there was a scene in particular where I remember, I think it might be the introduction of Sonny Hayes, which is Brad Pitt's character, to the team that he eventually joins. And I think in this intro scene, you have like 6 characters on the periphery and they're having a conversation. And I got to a point where I almost started counting the cuts. Yeah. And I was like,
oh, it was a lot.
Yeah.
It was a lot.
You know the scene I'm talking about? Yeah. Like, it was like character reaction. Oh, character reaction. They said this. They said this. And elements of that can obviously, like, for moviegoers that are just going to shove popcorn in their face and have a good time with the movies, they're not going to care about that. They're not going to notice that as much. But it is something that definitely hurts the movie in places, because it's like, oh, you're just trying to keep up with the story, and it makes itself aware to the viewer if you are looking for something like that.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
I want to actually talk about, you mentioned the characters specifically, and that specifically the rivalry and the dynamic of the 2 main characters, Sonny Hayes and Joshua Pierce, that was my favorite part, aside from the action, because the action is, like you said, it is heart bumping. It's adrenaline junkie perfect. It's beautiful. And I guess we'll talk more specifically about that later, but Joshua Pierce and Sonny Hayes as a character, I think you really wrapped it up perfectly, because I feel now that, although I don't think this is like the best movie in the world, and far from my favorite film that has come out this year, I'm going to remember Joshua Pierce and Sonny Hayes, because they are perfect blockbuster, like, action stars. You know, I enjoyed a lot from Damson Idris and how his portrayal of Joshua and the constant batting with Sonny, I loved it. I loved the banter. I loved the fights they get into, and also the partnership and the friendship and those kind of lighter moments too. I love.
I think the dynamic that not only Damson and Brad had together, but the Formula One team in general, and like kind of how everybody fit perfectly. It's like almost like that game you give kids where you have to fit the shapes directly. You know what I mean? Like, everybody plays their role really well up to a certain point. Kerry Condon, who I love, and I loved her obviously in Banshees of Inisherin. I don't think this is a fault of hers, but one of my gripes with the movie is that I do think she unfortunately falls into this, like, she starts off being like this not perfect portrayal, but a great example of femininity on screen and being a woman of power in the role that she's in, and then she kind of gets relegated to, like, you're the love interest of Brad Pitt. Which could be, again, like, it's almost like she's serving, but we've already, like, I don't want to beat it over the head, but like the Jennifer Connelly role in Top Gun, like, that's kind of what she becomes, which I think is a shame, because I think she's such a talented actress. And I do like the scene that we get later on in the movie, which, again, this isn't necessarily a spoiler because I'm not going to go into the story for it, but the Texas Hold'em scene that we get is a really well done scene, I think. Like, the way it's directed, the way it's framed, the way that we're kind of having this trio of power, understanding the dynamic of who is going to win comparatively, and kind of how Sonny decides to do something different in that moment. But like you talked about, Sonny and Joshua, their dynamic and their relationship changes so much throughout the movie that you are rooting for them to have that team dynamic by the end. It's not something that feels forced. It's also something that, with the runtime that they have, it gives a good opportunity to have that form in a really natural way. Even though I do think, and Liz would love this if she's listening, the cut queen, I do think that this movie is too long. I think that there are scenes that become a little too bloated, and things that we just kind of, but again, at the same time, when we get into the beginning of the movie, they're like, we have 9 races to get to a certain place, and we live those 9 races. Like, I'm pretty sure in full, what do we see? Like 7 races in full, 6, 7 races in full.
Yeah. And there's a great montage sequence towards the end of the second act that kind of covers, I think, a majority or a good few. And it's great.
Yeah. I want to talk. Let's talk about the scale. Right. Let's talk about the scale of the movie. They have full access in this film. It's very obvious. And I think that so much of it, when it was first announced, was that, like, this was going to be a movie that was in partnership with Formula One, not that it needs to get on the map necessarily, but to open up the sport to more people, but also give that leeway where you're not getting into those awkward spaces with other sports movies where like you're doing a football movie where it's like there's no real teams in it and you have to like change everything and it leads to a lot more design, all these things. Everything is at their disposal in this movie. For the race sequences in particular and all the different locales and things we get, for someone and similar to you, I don't watch Formula One. I might have seen like clips from races and things like that. What was your thought process seeing that all play out and see the technology involved and seeing how they were given all that access to make a movie at this scale?
Yeah, it's epic. It's so cool. And I'm an adrenaline junkie myself. And this is the closest to, although I haven't got the opportunity to really invest my time and effort into becoming an F1 fan or just a racing fan in general, this is the closest that I've come to it, and I'm loving it, because it's so perfect in all the elements of how to build a great racing scene. And I wanted to say, because when I was watching it, the first thought that came to mind is John Kosinski has really taken everything that has worked in prior racing films and taken only the good parts, the best parts, and put it all together and makes probably, in my opinion, out of all the racing films that I've seen, the best racing sequences. And that is the reason why eventually I'm going to give this film the highest, or not the highest score ever, but the as high as a score that I will give it, because I think of films like Ford versus Ferrari and other racing films, and I think of the way it's cut and the way it's directed, and those are fun, but Ford versus Ferrari felt very by the books when it came to its racing. It felt, even films like Ferrari, which I did not like Ferrari, but the racing sequences there, John Kosinski, though, implements all these really creative techniques. The editing and the tension and the building of these scenes are gripping. They're incredible. I love the attached camera mounts and the spinning cameras. It's like it's whipping around, and the attention to detail too, because we're talking about scale. Although not a Formula One fan, I could tell how much attention to detail there was, and I could appreciate that, even though I'm not familiar with like, oh, that's that and that's that. I could tell, like, even that opening NASCAR scene, although not F1, you could see like the sparks and the little mechanisms, and the first thing that came to mind was, oh, Kosinski really made an effort to give fans who are familiar with this sport what they want too.
Yeah.
Not just
like feeling like they're actually there.
Yeah.
And I totally agree with you. So you obviously also being like a DP, I'm sure like there were so many times where like the way that they were angling the cameras and they had them attached to the vehicles or like on the ground and the pavement was like remarkable. I think Joe Kosinski does this really great job of seeing it again from that. I wonder if he comes from like a camera background, you know what I mean? Because so much of it plays in that bombastic way. And like you talked about, like, I don't disagree with, I haven't seen Ferrari, but I saw Ford v Ferrari and I love that movie. But there's a very different approach. Not that there's anything wrong with that. Yeah. There's a very different approach with a movie like that and like another racing movie that I love so much. But again, it's like a biopic with the shape of taking place in the world of racing is Rush. You ever seen Rush?
I have not, but
Rush,
I've seen
a
clips
fantastic
of it,
movie. A fantastic movie. But again, it's like I think about the auteurs that did those movies, right? It's like Ron Howard. And then you have James Mangold, who obviously just did like A Complete Unknown doing Ford v Ferrari. And they come from such character-driven stories. And what you get out of those movies is these deeper subtexts and these textures of these characters where you're understanding who they are as people, where the car just kind of serves the function. This movie is epic in terms of it's about the vehicles. It's about the technology. It's about the way they can cut time off of the way they race. It's about the team that they assemble and how they have to go through these. Like one of the things that stood out to me and my brother, and I saw the movie with my brother, and we're talking about how cool it is like giving you that inside glimpse on like the I don't even know how to explain it. It's like a simulator that they have.
Yeah.
That clearly it seems like every F1 team probably has these things where you're in this, like, it's almost like the volume where they have in like Star Wars, where like everywhere you look, no matter where you're looking around you, it looks like you're on the actual track and you can simulate what happened before, and you're in like the base of a car, but there's no wheels. You're just driving in virtual reality.
Yeah.
And
it's like a video game.
Yeah, 100%. And that's something that, like, you wouldn't see that in a movie unless you have the budget to do that. You know what I mean? And the capacity and the authenticity to kind of show that in the movie. And I think that what this movie tries to do is it really tries to put you in the seat of the car. It tries to, like, I came out of this movie saying to my brother, I'm like, dude, that Vegas course, like, we have to go there.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I'm like, I want to go there and watch an F1 race, because you see that even the scale of like how they design these courses within the corridors of the city, and it makes it feel like it's I think they even say it in the movie, it's like you feel so alive. Like, everything about what the race is alive. Like, and they do such a great job of capturing that in this movie with not only the racing sequences, but the way that you care for the characters, like we talked about, or you talked about earlier. Let's talk a little bit about Damson, because he's one that's not that he's not in the marketing for the movie, obviously, but Brad is top billed. But Damson Idris, very, very charismatic in this movie, playing this role of this hotshot rookie, which again, you see it's a trope, right? It is a cliche. Yeah. But what did you think about his performance, and a little bit about his chemistry with Brad Pitt, and kind of dealing with what he was going through in that time?
I loved it. I mean, I don't think I've seen him in anything, but he's awesome. He's so cool. He's very charismatic. And at the beginning of the film, he's a little asshole that you kind of hate, but in a perfect way. I gotta pull up the costume designer of this film, because the swag is also immaculate. From not only Brad Pitt's character, but Damson Idris in every scene has such an incredible outfit on. It's beautiful.
Oh, you're saying when he's off the track too?
Yeah, when he's off the track.
Fashion's top notch.
Yeah, I mean,
like 14 different pairs of sunglasses.
Yeah,
in the movie,
and the poker scene. It's incredible. That fit, the amazing fit.
Yes,
and completely dripped out. I love it. And he's just great. I almost wish I could say more, but the best I can say is less, and that's he's just all around a really awesome component of this film, and he carries that rivalry with Brad Pitt very well.
Julian Day is the costume designer for the movie.
Yes.
He also previously did Rush, which is ironic. He also did Rocket Man, and he did Bohemian Rhapsody. So he has a sense for that bigger, flashier style, which you definitely see come out with Damson's character of Joshua Pierce. I agree with you. Damson's been rumored recently to maybe be the one that Marvel's looking at for the next Black Panther. I think that he commands the screen in a way that is similar to how Chadwick did. My only gripe, not even with his performance, is that I wish we got more of him. But I understand in the way that the story unfolds, obviously, which we've been a little bit in this review already. I'm gonna just give a spoiler warning at this point. We're gonna maybe just start to throw in some spoilers here and there. But when his accident happens and you remove him for like 35 minutes of the movie, you do lose. Like, I feel like at that point in the movie, it does lack a little bit, like not having that rivalry be at the center of it. But I do like how they have his character listen in on these moments. You know what I mean? I really did appreciate that with the direction where when his mother goes and talks to Sonny, and is very much about like, it's your fault that this happened, when we know as the viewer that because Joshua didn't listen to Sonny, he gets himself into a situation where a very serious accident occurs. The conversation that Sonny has with Ruben in the after he gets into his accident, and what that means, him being outside the room, which I think formulates into that place where we get the kinship between the two of them and trying to get them to a common ground. I don't know if this movie works as well if you don't have the dynamic between those two as good as you did. You know what I mean?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. 100%.
Yeah. Brad Pitt, been a while since he's done something at this scale.
Yeah.
Like he actually, I will say, he did Bullet Train, was like somewhat recently. I don't know if it was his last movie he did before this or somewhat recently. 2022 it came out, which is an action movie. But this is, again, this feels so much like a Tom Cruise vehicle that it makes you wonder, like, were they going to get Tom Cruise or was he too busy doing Mission Impossible?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But I think that Brad Pitt adds a different level of like, I don't know if this is a word, but I'm going to use it anyway. It's like a gruffness. Like there's a certain gruff to the way that Sonny is, where you can see the scars, whether it's literally where you see the scars on his body and you see the tattoos and the rough and tough of who that character is, but also like the scars on like his psyche and the scars on like his heart and the scars on his brain. How did you feel about the way that Brad handled this, especially for being top billed of like, again, a major movie? I think this movie might have cost like $300 million. Like, it was a big movie, and I think it will make its money back. It's the highest grossing opening weekend of the year for an original movie. So it's off to a really good start to start off. But Brad Pitt, what'd you think?
Yeah, I really enjoyed him in this. I think about what you said about Tom Cruise. Yeah, he would not. I don't want Tom Cruise in this role. You know what I mean? Because I've seen Tom Cruise play roles like Jack Reacher, and I don't like him in those roles. Like, Tom Cruise doesn't give that kind of rough masculinity. You know, he's more of like a clean kind of.
He's clean cut.
Yeah, clean cut kind of masculine figure. But Brad Pitt, he's a little dirty, right? And I think that fits for a character like Sonny really well. You know, living out the van and all of that. So Brad Pitt, honestly, for the budget and for how big this film is, the best pick, honestly. The best pick that I could think of. He fits. It almost feels like it was written for him, honestly, because he just kind of fits in perfectly.
Yeah, I wonder if that was something in the writing process where they wrote a character, like you said, like, I wonder if they cast Brad first, and then they were like, we gotta make this guy different than that clean cut Cruise character. Because it's not to say that I don't want to take away Tom Cruise's acting ability. I think he's an incredible actor, and I don't know if I know I've talked to Michael about this recently. Have you seen Collateral?
Oh, yeah. Dude, that movie's great.
It's a fantastic movie. Again, Michael Mann directed. He can get actors to a certain place that usually they don't get to, right? Like, Heat is another great example of like seeing this different side of De Niro. But it's not to say Cruise couldn't get there. I don't know if Cruise is playing these roles in recent memory where he can, not that he can't get to that place, but it's just not what he's focused on. And I wonder if when they were writing the script, it was like, we need to make sure that this guy's like a grizzled vet, because so much of what Josh, JP, as he calls him, JP's character is that clean cut. Like, everything's got to be fresh. Everything's got to be about my marketability. Everything's got to be about making sure how I speak. And you see that early on in the film in a scene that I love where I don't know if it's the first race they have together, but he's smiling. Like, they're in a fight, and he realizes that like all of the media is watching him from like afar, and he like just starts smiling and like waving.
Yeah.
And Sonny's like, what the hell are you doing? Like, did we win a race? Like, we literally didn't finish. Like, we didn't finish the race. Like, what are you smiling about? And having that dynamic definitely played into the other side of what this movie succeeded at, which I think is that chemistry between the two of them, you know?
Yeah. I don't really have much to add to that. You captured it perfectly.
Yeah. Is there something in particular that you wanted to touch on in this review that we haven't touched on yet?
Yeah. Going back to what I said in my broad thoughts, and I think the film's fatal flaw, but also oddly enough, what I like about the film is the formula, you know. It is very...
No pun intended, by the way.
Yeah.
Formula One.
Oh, yeah.
No pun intended.
It's very formulaic, right? It's very just kind of Save the Cat by Blake Snyder, beat by beat. Very Top Gun Maverick, very similar. But I think Kosinski does the build-up to these points that we know are going to happen. And they're edited so well, and they're directed so well, and the presentation is so cutting that they still hit.
Yeah.
Even though you know it's gonna happen, or even though in the back of your mind you feel like, oh yeah, I kind of know at this point in the movie this is gonna happen because that's the formula. But it's executed well enough
That's what I was
that
gonna say.
it doesn't really matter almost. I think of the accident scene where Joshua's right. And in that moment, I'm like, all right, yep. This is the moment. Yep, I know. I know it's
point. Yeah.
I know it's gonna happen. I know exactly what's going to happen. And guess what? Exactly what I thought happened. Yet, I still got emotional. Yet I still was struck. And maybe it was because of my theater. I was in a packed IMAX theater, and literally when it goes silent, everyone gasped. And they were like, oh. And maybe it was that, but either way, I felt emotion despite knowing what was going to happen. And I think the formula, in an odd sense, knowing what was going to happen and knowing the beats and being familiar with how films are just constructed like this, added this impending doom to scenes like that, where you almost can't look away because you know it's going to happen, but damn, it really did happen.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's my biggest talking point about the film, honestly.
Well, I think you literally took the word that I was gonna say. It's something that's just so well executed on every facet of the movie. From the technical side of it, the cinematography is great.
Yeah.
The emotion that you feel is great. It leaves enough space for you to feel the emotion. The acting is up to snuff. The writing is good enough to keep the movie going and progressing in a way where it doesn't stall out. It almost feels like, to not make it like a movie reference, it feels like you're eating something that's very simple, but it's prepared perfectly. You're like, I've had this cheeseburger before, but at the same time, it's like you're taking a bite out of it and you're like, man, I love cheeseburgers. You know what I mean? It's that feeling of comfortability in being in a movie that, like you talked about in the beginning of the review, it's like a perfectly made blockbuster. There's not a lot of gripes in terms of course, the script could be punched up a little bit more. Of course, you could give your supporting players a little bit more dialogue, but is it relegated to a 2-character story? It's definitely not. There are things that you see, they throw the wrench in things, like you said, that could be formulaic, but it's in a way where you're like there's a scene in particular with the owner of the team that happens later on in the movie, and I found myself in the theater that motherfucker. You know what I mean? It's not something where you're just like, oh, I saw that coming, that guy was a weirdo. You can kind of tell. It was just something that gets undercut, and you're like, oh, something happened to the team, and you're like, oh, I wonder how that happened. You have a reference point where you're like, I think I know how it would happen, and then when it still happens, you're like, damn, man, I hate this guy, and they make you hate him for the right reasons. I do want to ask you, because you brought it up, your theater experience. I saw this movie. If it wasn't sold out, it was close to being sold out. And I saw this movie. We're recording this on a Monday night. I saw the movie on a Sunday afternoon. And it was packed. My theater was absolutely packed in an IMAX screening. I don't know when you saw it. I don't know where you saw it. But for you, that theater going experience, one, how was it? And did it enhance your experience of the movie? Because it did for me.
Yeah, 100%. We had basically the same theater experience, it seems. I was in a nearly sold out theater.
Were you at the same screening that I was at?
I saw it on Saturday. You saw it on Sunday?
I saw it yesterday.
Yeah, I saw it on Saturday.
So we were at a different screening. Okay.
Yeah.
And it was packed, you said?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was packed.
Were there reactions from the crowd? You had talked about the gasping and things like that, but in terms of the action, did you feel like you could feel the tenseness in the room in races and things like that?
That's hard to say.
It's a hard thing to quantify.
Okay, so I have to talk about, because I had a very unique experience. This father and mother, I'm assuming, brought a group of children. And
how old would you estimate the kids were?
Probably maybe 8 years old.
Okay.
And this one kid most likely has crazy ADHD. And they were maybe two in the row in front of me, 2 seats to the right. And throughout whenever the action sequences weren't going on, and it was just dialogue, I'm telling you, this kid was riding a war horse. He was going like this. And I'm like, holy shit, dude, calm down.
He had the carryover from the F1 scene.
Yeah. So if we're talking about theater experiences, I think that kid, he definitely added some energy. He definitely added some energy. Yeah.
I love that. That's really funny. Yeah, no, I mean, again, the movie is energy filled. There's a lot in terms of the immersiveness of this movie, I think, is its biggest credit. You know, like it really does put you in it and you feel for the characters and you feel the drama of the situations. You feel the velocity of the cars, the throttle and everything. Again, Brad Pitt, we love the chemistry there. Javier Bardem, we haven't talked a lot about, but I love him in everything he does. And I do love that this gives him an opportunity to kind of have fun with a role, because I feel so many of his performances are either on paper or like in the performance is so villainous, you know, or it has like this tinginess to like, that dude's a bit of a scumbag. There's none of that to Ruben's character. He's a very calculative and constructive guy, but he also has a lot of fun to his personality and the way that he interacts with certain people. So I mean, again, I love him in everything, but he adds a different layer of fun to this movie. And before you talk about him, I'll just touch on, again, Kerry Condon. I think that the first scene where you see the chemistry formulate between, again, no pun intended, where this is just happening naturally, Brad Pitt's character and her character, when they have the scene where they go to get a beer and they're talking about, he's like questioning like how she got to become the first female technical director, and she has this sort of outward reaction towards him. I thought that you start to see the development of what could have been a really strong character, and not that she isn't, but it goes unfortunately in a different direction. But I think that her being cast is great, because I just think I want to see her in more things. You know, like since Banshees, I just really appreciate her as an actress.
Yeah, you have the exact same thoughts as I do, honestly. Javier Bardem is really charismatic in this, and I really enjoyed him. And he's, in my opinion, one of the best actors of all time. So I agree completely with what you said. Same with Kerry Condon, because I'm almost a little disappointed with how she ended up at the end, because, like you said, it just kind of becomes, oh, she's the love interest. Because at the beginning, you see her, she's literally like working in the factory, making the car, and she's very hands-on. And then I feel post poker scene and post getting with Brad Pitt, then it just like, okay,
it just dissipates. Like all the energy of her character just kind of goes away.
It felt exactly. Yeah. It felt like the writers were like, okay, we did what we had to do with her character. Now we don't have to worry about it.
Yeah. Now you get to have sex with Brad Pitt, and then we'll figure it out from there.
Yeah, exactly. And like even the moment when Brad gets into his accident. Sonny gets into the accident, and then you have a really, in my opinion, really bad cut in the edit. Although not a bad cut film. Like this film is edited incredibly. Aside from like, you know, the weird dialogue and stuff like this where it cuts to black. She jumps out of her chair. She grabs it. And then it cuts to black as she like gasp, jaw down to the floor. And I'm like, okay, now it just felt like her. I get it. I get it, because now they have a connection. But in that moment, it felt very just formulaic to a love interest rather than what we had at the beginning of the film.
Yeah.
Other than that, I don't really have many thoughts.
Yeah, I think we've touched upon a lot of it. So at this point, I guess we can get the scores.
Oh, yeah.
I'll start. I think we touched upon a lot of it. This movie is a really fun blockbuster. I can't recommend enough for people to go and see this movie in the best format you can see it in.
Oh, yeah.
This isn't a movie you should wait for on streaming, regardless of what your at-home setup is. I'm sure a lot of people at home invest a lot in their home setups and things like that, and sound bars and high def and 4K and all that. Go see this movie in IMAX if you can, because it's one of the best IMAX releases that I've seen this year. It's one of the best IMAX releases I've ever seen. I think Brad Pitt does a really great job with this character. I hate to be this guy to say this and do this, but I would like to see more with these characters, because I did feel a great established thing with them, even though the end of the movie obviously puts Sonny in a completely different environment. So I'd be curious to see how they would bring him back. But again, Damson is great in this movie. Just wanted to see a little bit more from him. Javier Bardem is great. The direction, as I said, was really good cinematography. It's a really fun time at the movies. And despite it having some cliches and it being a little overlong, it's still a very enjoyable experience. So I'm going to give F1 the movie an 8 out of 10.
I am the same rating.
We are on one
8.
right now.
Yep. We're on the same wavelength.
We are.
Yeah.
We're right there.
Yeah.
Maybe we should be teammates on the Formula One track.
That would be so cool.
That would be awesome.
I'm almost scared what I would do behind the wheel, though.
I feel similar. These cars are going like 280 miles an hour.
Oh, yeah.
Which is insane. And I'm sure we didn't talk about this a lot, but they do some of their own racing in this movie.
I did not know
Yes. And so, like, it's kind of remarkable to see that, like, again, like Tom Cruise put everybody through that crazy training process with flying in Top Gun Maverick. Like, I think that calls itself to so much of it. And I listened to a little bit of Brad Pitt on one of the podcasts I like, Armchair Expert, and he's so much of an adrenaline junkie. So like, I feel like for him, it was probably like, what an insane experience to literally be driving a Formula One car. Yeah. Which is incredible.
Yeah.
So,
that's insane. Yeah. I did not know that.
Yeah.
Like Brad Pitt and Damson Idris were
they were operating. I don't know. Again, probably not 100% of the movie, but they did operate Formula One cars in this film.
Oh wow,
which is crazy.
Damn,
it's really unbelievable. But that is our review. That is our discussion on the film F1, the movie. Please let us know in the comments, what are your guys' thoughts on the film? We'd love to have a conversation with you guys. We'd love to interact with the audience and the community as much as possible. So we'd love to have a conversation in the comments section. Give this video a like if you guys can. Subscribe to us here at the Culture Wave Media Network. We have tons of other content on the channel for you guys and on our social media. All that stuff could be found below me in the video. It's also in our YouTube description. But we have videos for a bunch of other things up right now. We have interviews on there. We just got done with our coverage for the Tribeca Film Festival. We have other reviews upcoming for, by the time this drops, The Bear Season 4 might already be up on the channel. We have Squid Game coming up. There's a bunch of other films upcoming. For the superhero crowd, we'll be covering all of the upcoming superhero madness. Ironheart, Superman, Fantastic Four, First Step. So there's a lot upcoming for the rest of the summer. So please check that out and share this with your family and friends. Just signing off, I'm Darian Scalamoni.
And I'm Vinny Albano.
And we'll see you guys next time.
This is The Culture.